I'm Beth Stroble. I'm president of Webster University, and I completed 2 master's degrees at SIUE, one in 1980, one in 1984. The first in history, the second in American and English literature. The best advice I've ever received, and I'm very glad to pass it on to others, is make decisions that keep the most future options open. So don't unnecessarily limit your future options. Keep them open as long as you possibly can. I'm not sure that when I started at SIUE, I knew what my goals were. And so as I completed 2 master's degrees, it was over a decade worth of time that was my start as a young adult. I was right out of undergraduate school. I was fortunate enough to have a teaching job at Vandalia High School, and I soon wanted to reacquaint myself with graduate studies and reading and writing and life of the mind. And my initial motivation was that I was hired to teach English and public speaking, but I was trained as a history major. And I worried that I would lose all my love and acquaintance of history. So I thought, well, while I'm doing the English teaching, which was my minor, I'll do a master's degree in history, and then I'll keep my love of history alive. So I did that over the summers and part-time study, and that took me several years to do the history degree. And I had a series of life events that happened that are very much intertwined with my life at SIUE. During that first degree, I married a local farmer. He had been in remission from childhood leukemia for about 10 years at the point we married. While we were married, about 2.5 years into our marriage, he began to have recurrences of the cancer. So during that time, I finished the degree and then was married and then was widowed at age 30. So it was a time for me to evaluate what's next. And my advice about keep options open in the future meant that I really needed to look at this as a turning point potentially in my life, and what could I do that would create the most future options for me. So I thought, I'll go back to school. I'll do a second master's degree, and this time I'll do it in English because I miss being in a community of readers and writers about literature. And I also knew I needed the time of a reading and writing community to sort out my thoughts and what I wanted to do with myself. I sort of had it in my mind that I would do a doctorate, and I knew that I didn't love history enough to do the doctorate in it. And I thought, maybe English. So I had a wonderful year-long full-time experience. I took a sabbatical from my teaching, had the best professors and the best fellow students, and just gained a love of learning that I had not had as an undergraduate and a young child. I was always good at school. I could ace a test. I was good at participating in class. I knew exactly how to get those A's. But I was better at school than I was at learning. And it was in my 2 degrees at SIUE that I gained that love of learning, and then in my teaching gained the love of teaching that became my passion for my life. So I remarried, and during that time period found the second love of my life, and we will celebrate 30 years of marriage very soon. And we decided to get married and go off and do PhD degrees as newlyweds. And we went to University of Virginia, and I certainly found that those 2 master's degrees prepared me exceptionally well for PhD work, and they gave me a new identity as a learner and as a scholar that I had not had without those experiences. I'm very grateful. This honor to be named to the SIUE Hall of Fame is an integration and a connection of so much in my life that was this defining decade, these turning points, these moments of decision. All are intertwined with my time and community here at SIUE. So it's very personally satisfying to me, and it's professionally an honor. As a university president, I know how important the connection can be between alums and institution, and this helps me feel close to SIUE in a way that is just wonderful. Webster University is such a unique place. We like to say that we serve 22,000 students in 60 cities, 8 countries, 4 continents. And when you're the Webster University president, you're president of all of that. So it does mean a fair bit of travel. It means great uses of technology, social media, a lot of being present all the time. And I love it. I do take my vitamins, I get a good night's rest, I exercise, and I do all the things that make one able to do that, but it's really the joy of doing it that makes it work. Our world, if we know anything about it, is that it is increasingly interconnected. What happens here in the bi-state region has impact all over the world, and likewise, what happens in other parts of the world truly affects us whether we realize it or not. So to think of yourself and your identity as being part of a larger world, whether you're very rooted locally or not, seeing the connections to that larger world and having a bond with the rest of humanity is the most important reason for us to experience other cultures, other perspectives, other languages, other ways of thinking about the world, because it gives us a bond that makes the world potentially a better place. During that first master's degree in history, I decided to do a thesis version of the degree. So looking for a subject, I had had this great class in writing biography. And I thought, maybe a biography for the thesis would be a good project. I had a lovely next-door neighbor, Mary Pauline Birchie, who was a retired teacher of English, had obviously been an exemplary teacher of English, and she really became not only a friend but a mentor to me. And she was long retired. She had grown up in Vandalia. Her father had been the mayor, and she was a treasure trove of primary source documents. She and her sister, they lived together, had written a lot of historical documents about Vandalia, where we were living, because it was the second capital of Illinois. They had traveled extensively, and she had notebooks and scrapbooks and copies of every piece of correspondence she had ever received or that she had sent. So she had lived an amazing life over an amazing period of time in Southern Illinois and U.S. history. She had kept track of it all. She had extensive insights about it, and I learned a lot from her about being a great English teacher. So it seemed to me, and she had been single all her life, she seemed to me to be a woman professional ahead of her time, quite a pioneer, and I thought her story would be an interesting story. Dr. Norman Nordhauser directed this thesis for me, and I took almost 9 months to write her story, and she was a careful editor. She insisted on reading everything I wrote and giving me editing advice on it as well. So you may as well say that my thesis was a bit co-written. Many years passed. I went on to do the second degree. I went on to do the PhD. We moved all over the country doing our academic careers. And when I began to look for presidencies and was recruited to apply by Webster University, my time with Mary Pauline Birchie had been decades before. So I was intrigued by Webster University. It was unlike anywhere I had ever worked or anywhere I had really ever become acquainted with, but there was something about the place and its spirit that seemed quite familiar to me. Well, I was appointed in February 2009, and my husband, who is a Vandalia native, still gets the paper from there twice a week. In April, we opened up the paper, and there was Mary Birchie's obituary. She had died that spring before I actually relocated to St. Louis. And in the first paragraph, something that I should have remembered but had not, she was a Webster University student. She graduated when it was still a college in 1933, at the very inception of the college. And so I feel very much when I'm present at Webster that that woman and her spirit has called me back, and it's a great SIUE connection for me. And I still see Norm Nordhauser because I saw him my first summer here. When he came to Opera Theater, I recognized his voice across the lobby, and I don't see him often, but when I do, I feel another strong connection of that time in Vandalia when I was just learning to teach, and I was developing as a scholar in those master's degrees, and I still have that connection to Webster University.